The exploration of authenticity versus social masks highlights the complex interplay between our true selves and the roles we play in society. While social masks are often necessary for navigating the expectations of others and participating in social interactions, they can become a barrier to genuine connection and self-expression when overused or relied upon too heavily. Authenticity, on the other hand, encourages us to embrace our true selves, including our vulnerabilities and imperfections, leading to more meaningful relationships and a deeper sense of personal fulfillment. Striking a balance between these two forces is essential, as it allows us to function in social contexts while staying grounded in our core values and desires. Ultimately, living authentically empowers us to build lives that are more aligned with our true purpose, fostering connection, growth, and a deeper sense of well-being. Here's a deep truth that many fear to face. Your life, your soul, is not simply made of light. It is also made of shadow, of the parts of yourself you would rather not acknowledge. Goodness is often misunderstood as the absence of these shadows, the absence of flaws, weaknesses, and mistakes. But I tell you this, true goodness is not the denial of darkness, but the courage to confront it. The idea of confronting the shadow is often misunderstood. It is not about defeating a separate enemy or vanquishing an external evil. It is about facing the parts of ourselves that we have denied or hidden away. The shadow represents those aspects of the psyche that are repressed, often because they don't align with our conscious self-image or societal expectations. These traits may include desires, emotions, instincts, or memories that are seen as inappropriate, embarrassing, or even dangerous. The shadow is not inherently bad. It is simply the unacknowledged parts of our personality. The path of confronting the shadow is a journey inward, a deep dive into the unconscious to uncover the truths that we avoid, truths that we have buried in the dark corners of our mind. For many, it is easier to deny the existence of the shadow. It can be uncomfortable to accept that we too possess the potential for anger, jealousy, selfishness, and all the other traits that we consider undesirable. Yet avoiding the shadow does not erase it. The more we repress, the more power these hidden aspects of the self gain over us. They manifest in subtle ways, through projection, through patterns of behavior that we don't fully understand, and through the emotions we are unable to control. For example, the person who constantly criticizes others may be projecting their own feelings of inadequacy onto them, unable to face the part of themselves that feels insecure. Or someone who denies their own anger may find themselves erupting in fits of rage, unaware of where it comes from or why it is so overwhelming. To confront the shadow is to stop running away from these darker aspects and instead turn towards them. It requires a radical honesty with oneself, an acceptance that we are not perfect, that we are not simply the good person we like to present to the world. It is important to recognize that the shadow is not just about negative traits or destructive impulses. It also contains qualities that may be considered positive but are disowned because they don't fit with our self-concept. For instance, a person who prides themselves on being humble may repress their natural desires for recognition or success. A person who views themselves as a caretaker may suppress their need for independence and autonomy. In this sense, the shadow encompasses all the parts of the self that we deny or reject, whether they are good or bad in the conventional sense. The process of confronting the shadow is not something that can be accomplished in a single moment of insight or revelation. It is an ongoing journey, a continuous process of self-exploration and self-acceptance. It begins with awareness, recognizing the patterns of behavior, the emotional reactions, and the thoughts that are out of sync with our conscious beliefs. These are the clues that point us toward the shadow. Once we become aware of these aspects, we can begin to understand their origins, their role in our lives, and their deeper significance. This process often involves digging into the past, exploring childhood experiences, early relationships, and societal influences that shaped our sense of self and the boundaries we placed around it. By understanding where these repressed parts of ourselves come from, we can begin to make peace with them. However, the path to integrating the shadow is not always comfortable. Confronting these aspects of ourselves can stir up feelings of shame and guilt, fear, and even disgust. We may feel a sense of betrayal to the identity we have built, as if accepting these darker parts of our sins, compromising our moral values or our sense of self-worth. But in truth, it is only by embracing these aspects that we can become whole. When we refuse to acknowledge the shadow, we live in a fragmented state. We live with the illusion that we are complete, that we are without flaw. But the reality is that every individual carries both light and darkness within them. To deny the darkness is to deny a part of our humanity. In confronting the shadow, we are not simply accepting negative traits, we are engaging in a process of transformation. By acknowledging these hidden aspects, we gain the opportunity to integrate them into our lives in a healthy and conscious way. The shadow does not need to dominate our behavior or our relationships, but it must be understood and integrated. This is where the concept of individuation comes into play. Individuation is the process by which we become our true selves, not by rejecting parts of who we are, but by embracing and integrating them. It involves becoming conscious of the unconscious and integrating those parts of the psyche that we have previously disowned. The goal of individuation is not to become perfect, but to become whole, fully aware of both our light and our darkness. The shadow also plays a crucial role in our relationships with others. Often the qualities we most dislike in others are the qualities we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. This is known as projection. When we project our own disowned traits onto others, we lose the opportunity for self-reflection and growth. The moment we realize that the anger we feel towards someone else may be rooted in our own repressed anger, or that our critical judgment of another person may be a reflection of our own inner judgment, we gain the power to change. By confronting the shadow within ourselves, we stop projecting it onto others. We stop blaming others for the very qualities we fail to accept in ourselves. This leads to healthier, more authentic relationships where we are no longer threatened by the imperfections of others, because we have made peace with our own. The act of confronting the shadow also requires a level of vulnerability. It means allowing ourselves to be imperfect, to acknowledge our flaws without the need to justify or rationalize them. It means accepting that we are complex beings with contradictory impulses and desires. The act of embracing our own darkness can be incredibly liberating. It frees us from the need to present a false image of ourselves to the world. It allows us to be authentic, to live without the burden of maintaining a facade of perfection. The more we embrace our own shadow, the more we free ourselves from the constraints of societal expectations and the judgments of others. Moreover, confronting the shadow does not mean acting on all the impulses or desires that arise from it. Integration is about transforming these darker aspects into something constructive, something that adds to the richness of our lives. For example, repressed anger, when acknowledged and understood, can be channeled into assertiveness and the ability to stand up for ourselves. Repressed desires for success can be transformed into ambition and drive, motivating us to pursue our goals without guilt or shame. The key is not to act out the shadow blindly, but to harness its energy in a way that is aligned with our higher self and values. Ultimately, the process of confronting the shadow is not about eliminating the darkness within us. It is about accepting it, understanding it, and learning how to live with it in a way that enhances our lives. It is through this integration that we find our true strength and become more authentic, more compassionate, and more whole. The shadow may always be a part of us, but it does not have to control us. By confronting it, we can learn to live in harmony with it, using its energy to fuel our growth and transformation. The unconscious mind is a vast and intricate part of our psychological landscape, often hidden from conscious awareness, yet profoundly shaping our thoughts, behaviors, and perception. It is a realm where thoughts, memories, desires, and experiences exist outside of our immediate awareness, often influencing us in ways we do not fully comprehend. The unconscious holds the power to shape our actions, emotions, and reactions in ways that are beyond our control. And it is only by exploring and understanding this hidden domain that we can begin to truly understand ourselves. At its core, the unconscious mind operates beneath the surface of our conscious awareness. It is not simply a repository of forgotten or repressed memories. It is an active force, constantly influencing our daily lives in subtle and not so subtle ways. Every experience we have Every emotion we feel leaves an imprint on the unconscious. These impressions, however small, accumulate over time and form a complex network of associations, beliefs and patterns that inform our responses to the world around us. Often we are unaware of how deeply the unconscious shapes our thoughts and behaviors until we become more attuned to its influence. The unconscious is not simply a passive collection of forgotten experiences. It plays a proactive role in our lives. Our deepest fears, desires, and unresolved conflicts are often stored within the unconscious, and these unresolved elements can surface in ways that surprise us. For example, someone might experience an irrational fear of dogs despite having no traumatic encounters with them. This fear might be rooted in a past memory or unresolved emotion that the person is not consciously aware of, yet it affects their behavior and decision-making. The unconscious also plays a key role in the formation of habits, beliefs, and even our sense of self. It stores the patterns and conditioning that shape our responses to people, situations, and events. One of the most powerful aspects of the unconscious mind is its ability to influence our emotional reactions. Emotions that arise seemingly out of nowhere, such as sudden anger, inexplicable sadness, or overwhelming joy, often have their roots in the unconscious. These emotions may be triggered by external events or internal thoughts, but the force behind them is often not fully understood. For instance, a person who reacts with intense frustration to a minor inconvenience might be experiencing emotions tied to past experiences that have been repressed or forgotten. The unconscious mind holds the key to understanding why we feel the way we do, even when those feelings seem irrational or disproportionate to the situation at hand. The unconscious also plays a pivotal role in the formation of dreams. Dreams are thought to be a direct link to the unconscious, offering a glimpse into the hidden aspects of the psyche. While we sleep, the conscious mind recedes, allowing the unconscious to surface in the form of symbolic imagery, metaphors, and narratives. Dreams can be puzzling and often nonsensical, but they carry profound meaning, often reflecting unresolved conflicts, desires, or unprocessed emotions. For many, dreams serve as a means of the unconscious mind attempting to communicate with the conscious mind. By paying attention to the symbolism and themes present in our dreams, we can begin to uncover hidden truths about ourselves and our psychological state. Despite the unconscious being a vital force in shaping our lives, it is also a realm of mystery and uncertainty. The unconscious mind does not communicate directly with us in language or coherent thoughts, but instead through symbols, images, and emotions. Understanding the unconscious requires a willingness to explore the depths of the psyche, to confront those aspects of ourselves that we may prefer to ignore or repress. It requires an openness to the unknown, a willingness to confront the parts of ourselves that are hidden from view. The unconscious is not a singular entity, but rather a complex system composed of different layers and components. On one level, it contains repressed memories, emotions, and desires that are too painful or uncomfortable for the conscious mind to face. These might include traumatic experiences from childhood, unresolved conflicts with others, or hidden fears and insecurities. On another level, the unconscious also contains the collective experiences and wisdom of humanity. This collective unconscious is a concept that suggests that all human beings share a common reservoir of archetypes, symbols, and experiences that are inherited across generations. These archetypes, such as the hero, the shadow, the wise old man, and the anima animus, are universal symbols that shape our perceptions of the world and ourselves. These archetypes are not learned through experience, but are inherited as part of the shared human experience. In addition to repressed memories and collective symbols, the unconscious mind also holds the potential for creativity and innovation. Many breakthroughs in art, science, and literature arise from the unconscious. The unconscious is a wellspring of creativity, where ideas, images, and solutions to problems emerge spontaneously without conscious effort. Often, these creative insights appear when we least expect them during moments of relaxation or dreams offering billions and billions of molecules. The unconscious mind has an incredible ability to connect seemingly unrelated ideas and concepts, often leading to innovative solutions and fresh perspectives. One of the challenges of engaging with the unconscious is the tendency for the conscious mind to resist or dismiss what lies within the depths of the psyche. Our conscious mind is conditioned to focus on the tangible, the rational, and the logical. It is often uncomfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty. As a result, the unconscious mind is frequently ignored or dismissed, even though it is constantly influencing our behavior. The process of bringing the unconscious into conscious awareness requires a level of vulnerability, self-reflection, and introspection. It requires confronting the parts of ourselves that we have hidden away or denied. In modern psychology, one of the key methods of engaging with the unconscious is through techniques such as free association, dream analysis, and active imagination. These methods provide a means of bypassing the defenses of the conscious mind and allowing the unconscious to express itself. Free association, for example, encourages individuals to speak freely and without censoring their thoughts. This process often reveals hidden connections between thoughts, emotions, and memories that are not immediately apparent. Dream analysis allows individuals to explore the symbolic meaning behind their dreams and uncover unconscious thoughts and feelings. Active imagination, meanwhile, encourages individuals to engage with the unconscious directly by visualizing and interacting with symbols and images that arise spontaneously in the mind. While the unconscious mind can hold immense power over our lives, it is not something to be feared. Instead, it is something to be understood, integrated, and embraced. By becoming more attuned to the unconscious, we can gain valuable insights into our motivations, desires, and behaviors. We can uncover hidden talents, resolve repressed emotions, and achieve greater self-awareness. The unconscious is not something that exists outside of us. It is an integral part of who we are. It is only by bringing the unconscious into conscious awareness that we can truly become whole and fully understand the depth and complexity of our own psyche. Self-awareness is one of the most transformative aspects of human existence. It involves the ability to observe and reflect on one's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors from an objective standpoint. It is the practice of stepping back and becoming the observer of one's own life, thoughts, and actions, rather than being completely consumed by them. Self-awareness allows individuals to gain a deeper understanding of their own motivations, desires, strengths, weaknesses, and unconscious patterns. It opens up the possibility for growth, change, and deeper connection with oneself and the world around them. However, self-awareness is not a passive act. It requires effort, patience, and most importantly, the willingness to face uncomfortable truths about oneself. When we become self-aware, we are often confronted with aspects of ourselves that we have hidden, ignored, or repressed. Those parts that do not align with the idealized image of who we think we should be. These parts can include our fears, insecurities, flaws, and desires that we may have been unwilling to confront. Being self-aware means acknowledging and accepting these parts of ourselves, even when they challenge the narrative we have constructed about who we are. In many ways, the journey of self-awareness is about stripping away the layers of pretense and illusion that we have built over time. From a young age, we are conditioned to adopt certain roles, identities, and behaviors that are expected of us by society, family, and culture. We develop beliefs about who we should be, how we should act, and what is considered acceptable. This process, while necessary for social integration, often leads us to lose touch with our authentic self. As we grow older, many of us become so entrenched in these roles and identities that we no longer recognize the person underneath. Self-awareness is the tool that allows us to break free from these constraints, to reconnect with the deeper aspects of who we truly are. But self-awareness is not just about recognizing our flaws or contradictions. It is about embracing them. It is about acknowledging the totality of our experience, both the light and the dark, without judgment. When we develop a deeper awareness of ourselves, we come to understand that we are not one-dimensional creatures. We are a mixture of conflicting desires, fears, impulses, and aspirations. It is only by recognizing these inner conflicts that we can begin to understand why we behave the way we do, why we feel certain emotions, or why we experience certain patterns in our lives. Self-awareness allows us to stop seeing ourselves as mere victims of circumstance or external forces, but as active participants in the creation of our own lives. It empowers us to take responsibility for our actions, our reactions, and the choices we make. With self-awareness comes responsibility, the recognition that we are not simply passive observers of our own lives, but active creators of our experience. This responsibility is not merely about being accountable for our actions in a moral or ethical sense, but about owning our personal power. When we are self-aware, we realize that we are not at the mercy of external events, other people, or circumstances. We understand that we have the ability to respond to life in a way that reflects our true values, desires, and intentions. We are not defined by the events that happen to us, but by how we choose to respond to them. Taking responsibility means acknowledging that our actions have consequences, and that we are responsible for the choices we make, both large and small. It means taking ownership of the impact we have on others, as well as the impact we have on ourselves. When we act unconsciously or react impulsively without awareness, we are often driven by our patterns, fears, or external pressure. We may find ourselves blaming others for our unhappiness or shortcomings, or we may feel like victims of circumstances. But when we become self-aware, we realize that we are the ones who ultimately determine the course of our life. We are not victims of our emotions or past experiences. We are empowered individuals who can make conscious choices. Responsibility also means owning our emotional responses. Often, we believe that our emotions are caused by external events or other people. We say things like, "She made me angry," or "This situation upset me." While it is true that external events can trigger emotions, the emotions themselves are ultimately our responsibility. They arise from our internal world, our beliefs, perceptions, and past experiences. When we are self-aware, we recognize that we have the power to choose how we respond to situations and emotions. We can choose to react with anger, frustration, or fear, or we can choose to respond with understanding, compassion, and calm. The key is not to suppress or deny our emotions, but to understand them, to observe them without judgment, and to make conscious choices about how we want to respond. This process of self-awareness and responsibility requires deep self-reflection and a willingness to be vulnerable. It is not easy to confront our own flaws, contradictions, or unresolved emotions. It is much easier to project blame onto others or to deny the uncomfortable parts of ourselves. However, it is only through this process of reflection and acceptance that we can truly begin to heal, grow, and evolve. Responsibility means that we no longer blame others for our problems or seek external validation to feel worthy. We begin to see ourselves as the creators of our own experiences, with the power to change, adapt, and grow. Self-awareness also involves recognizing our patterns, those recurring behaviors, thoughts, and emotional reactions that govern our lives. These patterns often develop in response to early life experiences, traumas, or conditioning, and they can continue to shape our lives long after their original cause has passed. When we are unaware of these patterns, they can control us, leading us to make the same mistakes over and over again. But when we become self-aware, we can identify these patterns, understand their origins, and begin to consciously choose new ways of thinking, feeling, and acting. Responsibility in this context means that we take ownership of the patterns we have created and recognize that we have the power to change them. Moreover, self-awareness allows us to take responsibility for our relationship. It helps us recognize how our actions, words, and behaviors impact others, and how the way we relate to others is often a reflection of our internal world. When we are self-aware, we are better able to communicate openly, express our needs, and set healthy boundaries. We are also more capable of empathy, as we can see beyond the surface and understand the motivations and feelings of those around us. Taking responsibility for our relationships means acknowledging our role in the dynamics of those relationships, whether they are positive or negative, or positive or negative. Ultimately, self-awareness and responsibility are not separate concepts, but are intrinsically linked. Self-awareness allows us to understand ourselves at a deeper level, while responsibility empowers us to make choices that align with our authentic selves. By becoming more self-aware, we are able to live more intentionally, to make choices that reflect our true desires and values, to respond to the challenges of life with clarity and purpose. Responsibility is the natural outcome of self-awareness. It is the acknowledgement that we are the architects of our own lives and that the power to change, grow, and create lies within us. As we embrace self-awareness and take responsibility for our actions, we step into our full potential and live more consciously, authentically, and responsibly. Individuation is a process central to the development of the human psyche, a concept often associated with the work of Carl Jung. It refers to the journey through which an individual integrates the various parts of the psyche, ultimately realizing a fuller, more authentic sense of self. This process is not simply about self-improvement or achieving success in traditional terms. It is a profound journey of becoming who we are meant to be, by acknowledging and reconciling the unconscious and conscious aspects of our personality. It is a journey toward wholeness where one becomes more than just a collection of traits and behaviors shaped by external influences. Instead, it is about embodying the true essence of one's being. At the heart of individuation is the integration of the various elements of the unconscious mind, which often manifest as contradictory aspects of the self. These include elements like the shadow, the anima and animus, and the various archetypes that make up the collective unconscious. The shadow represents those traits, impulses, and emotions that we have repressed because they do not fit within the acceptable framework of our conscious identity. The anima and animus represent the opposite gender qualities within each individual, while archetypes such as the wise old man, the hero, or the trickster reflect universal themes and patterns that are part of the human experience. The journey of individuation is one of confronting and reconciling these unconscious elements. It is not about rejecting or eliminating these parts of ourselves, but learning to accept and integrate. This is essential because when we refuse to acknowledge and integrate the parts of ourselves that we repress or ignore, they tend to surface in destructive ways. The shadow, when left unexamined, can manifest as projection, where we see the rejected aspects of ourselves in others, often leading to conflict and misunderstanding. Similarly, failing to embrace the anima or animus can lead to an imbalance in how we express ourselves, resulting in frustration and disconnection from our authentic desires and relationships. One of the essential aspects of individuation is the realization that the self is not fixed. It is not something that is determined at birth or dictated by society. Instead, it is something that evolves over time as we confront our inner contradictions and integrate the unconscious elements of the psyche. In this sense, individuation is a dynamic, ongoing process, one that continues throughout life. It is the journey of becoming more fully who we are, not in the sense of becoming someone else or achieving an idealized version of ourselves, but in the sense of embracing all that we are, including the aspects that we may not immediately recognize or accept. This process often begins with the recognition of the tension between the conscious self and the unconscious. Most people spend the early years of their lives identifying with their conscious self-image, the persona they present to the world. The persona is a mask, a social identity shaped by cultural expectations, family roles, and personal ambitions. While the persona is necessary for functioning in society, it is not the whole of who we are. It is only one facet of the self, and often it is an incomplete representation. The persona tends to suppress or ignore the unconscious elements of the psyche, leading to a disconnect between who we think we are and who we truly are. As we move through life, certain experiences or challenges can trigger the need for individuation. These are often times when we feel disillusioned with the persona we have constructed, when we begin to question the roles we have adopted and the values we have inherited. It is during these moments of crisis or disillusionment that the unconscious starts to break through, urging us to confront the deeper parts of ourselves. This can be an uncomfortable process as it requires question long-held beliefs and confront aspects of our psyche that may have been ignored for years. Yet, it is through this very confrontation that we begin to grow and evolve. Individuation is not about achieving perfection or transcending human flaws. Instead, it is about embracing the full complexity of our nature, including our flaws and imperfections. It is through recognizing our vulnerabilities, contradictions, and the shadow that we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. Far from being a process of idealization, individuation is a process of grounding ourselves in reality, of accepting that we are multifaceted beings who are shaped by both light and darkness. Through this acceptance, we find the capacity for deeper compassion both for ourselves and for others. A critical aspect of individuation is the cultivation of the ability to integrate opposites. In every individual, there are opposing forces, the rational and the irrational, the masculine and the feminine, the conscious and the unconscious, the personal and the collective. Individuation involves learning to reconcile these opposing forces and to recognize that they are not mutually exclusive, but are essential components of the whole self. It is in embracing these contradictions that we come closer to experiencing the wholeness of our being. This process is often challenging, as it requires breaking down old dichotomies and finding ways to hold seemingly contradictory aspects of the self in harmony. Furthermore, individuation is a journey that fosters a deeper connection with the world around us. As we become more integrated, more attuned to our inner world, we also become more capable of connecting with others in a meaningful and authentic way. When we are in touch with our true selves, we are better able to relate to others without projecting our own issues onto them. We are less likely to be reactive, less likely to see others as extensions of our own unresolved conflicts. This fosters healthier relationships as we become more open, compassionate and present with those around us. Individuation also leads to a greater sense of purpose. As we confront the unconscious elements within us and integrate them into our conscious life, we begin to understand the deeper motivations that drive us. Our actions, desires and ambitions no longer feel disconnected from our inner truth. We no longer feel as though we are living someone else's life or pursuing goals that are not aligned with our authentic desire. This sense of purpose arises from the recognition that we are not simply living by default, according to external pressures or unconscious patterns, but that we are actively creating our own path. We begin to live in alignment with our inner values, desires and potential, leading to a life that feels richer and more fulfilling. The process of individuation is not always smooth or easy. It requires courage, as it involves facing parts of ourselves that we would rather not acknowledge. It demands patience, as the integration of the unconscious is a slow and ongoing process that unfolds over time. And it requires humility, as we come to understand that there is always more to discover about ourselves and that the process of becoming whole is never truly complete. Yet, despite the challenges, individuation is the key to personal growth, emotional health, and spiritual fulfillment. It is the process through which we step into our full potential, becoming not a perfect being, but a fully realized human being. One who embraces their complexity, their contradictions, and their unique place in the world. The paradox of goodness lies in the complex relationship between moral behavior, human nature, and the expectations we have of ourselves and others. Goodness is often celebrated as a virtue, something to strive for in both personal and societal context. We praise kindness, honesty, and compassion, encouraging others to embody these qualities. However, the pursuit of goodness can also create internal contradictions and external challenges that reflect the deeper complexities of the human. On one hand, being good is seen as a desirable trait that brings harmony to relationships and society. Goodness is associated with qualities that elevate human dignity, acting with integrity, showing empathy, and promoting fairness. In a world often filled with injustice and strife, those who exhibit goodness provide a beacon of hope and a model for others to follow. They are the individuals who maintain their ethical standards even when it's difficult, who offer help without expecting anything in return, and who consistently act with the well-being of others in mind. There is a sense of moral clarity in this behavior. To be good is to be in alignment with a higher universal principle of what is right. However, the pursuit of goodness is not as straightforward as it may initially seem. The paradox emerges when we consider how goodness can sometimes lead to unintended negative consequences. One of the core contradictions is that goodness can become a rigid standard or even a form of self-sacrifice, leading to resentment or burnout. Those who strive to be endlessly good may suppress their own needs, desires, and boundaries in an attempt to always meet the expectations of others. This can create an internal conflict as they may begin to feel as though their goodness is not only unappreciated but also taken for granted. In this sense, the very quality that is meant to foster connection can inadvertently result in emotional exhaustion or a sense of being misunderstood. Additionally, the paradox of goodness is evident the way it interacts with power dynamics. Sometimes good people can be exploited or manipulated, particularly when they allow their kindness to be taken advantage of. This is especially true when goodness is equated with passivity or compliance. The idea that being good means constantly appeasing others or avoiding confrontation can lead to situations where an individual's well-being is compromised. Moreover, this dynamic can extend to larger social structures where those in power may use the concept of goodness to maintain control over those who are more vulnerable. By framing moral behavior as something that requires subjugation or self-sacrifice, the paradox becomes even more pronounced. Furthermore, the concept of goodness often carries an implicit expectation of perfection. There is a subtle but powerful pressure to live up to an ideal of what it means to be morally upright, and this ideal often leaves little room for the messy, contradictory nature of being human. The very idea of goodness can create feelings of inadequacy or self-doubt in those who inevitably fall short of these ideals. In a world where the expectations of goodness are so high, imperfections or moments of weakness are often seen as moral failures rather than as part of the natural human experience. This creates a tension between our aspirations and our reality, resulting in feelings of guilt or shame when we are unable to meet the expectations of being a good. The paradox deepens when we realize that sometimes goodness can become a form of superiority. In the desire to be good, some may fall into the trap of judgment, comparing their own behaviors to those of others and feeling morally superior. This creates division and distance rather than connection, as goodness becomes a tool for distinguishing oneself from others rather than for fostering empathy or understanding. The very pursuit of goodness can thus become a breeding ground for hypocrisy, as those who claim to be good may be blind to their own faults or the complexity of moral judgment. In essence, the paradox of goodness illustrates the tension between striving for moral excellence and the complexities inherent in human nature. While goodness is undoubtedly a valuable quality, its pursuit is not without its contradictions, and these contradictions can lead to negative outcomes if not carefully navigated. Recognizing the paradox allows for a more nuanced understanding of what it means to be truly good, one that incorporates both the light and shadow of human experience. Suffering is an inevitable aspect of the human experience, yet it is often perceived as something to be avoided at all costs. In a society that prioritizes comfort, success, and happiness, suffering is typically seen as a disruption to the flow of life. However, a deeper reflection on suffering reveals its complex role in shaping the human condition, offering profound opportunities for growth, transformation, and self-discovery. Suffering is not just a negative force. It is a fundamental part of the process through which individuals can gain wisdom, empathy, and a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. At its core, suffering has the potential to bring about change. When individuals experience pain, whether physical, emotional, or psychological, they are often forced to confront their limitations, their vulnerabilities, and their deepest fears. This confrontation with suffering can lead to a greater awareness of one's own humanity and the fragility of life itself. It may force individuals to step outside their usual patterns of behavior, to question previously held beliefs, or to challenge their worldview. In this sense, suffering acts as a catalyst for transformation, pushing individuals to explore new dimensions of themselves and to reevaluate their priorities and values. Suffering also plays a key role in developing resilience and strength. While the immediate impact of suffering can be overwhelming, it often provides an opportunity to build inner fortitude. Over time, individuals who face hardship and adversity may find that they are more capable of handling future challenges. The experience of suffering teaches individuals how to endure, to persevere in the face of difficulty, and to adapt to new circumstances. This process of enduring suffering often leads to a sense of empowerment as individuals come to realize their own capacity for growth and recovery. In this way, suffering becomes an essential teacher, showing individuals that they can survive even the most difficult situations and emerge stronger as a result. Furthermore, suffering has the power to deepen empathy and compassion. Those who have suffered in some way are often more attuned to the suffering of others. They understand on a visceral level what it means to feel pain, loss, or disappointment, and this shared understanding fosters a deeper sense of connection with others. Rather than distancing oneself from the suffering of others, those who have experienced hardship are often more inclined to offer support, comfort, and understanding. In this way, suffering helps to build bonds between individuals as it reveals the common threads of human vulnerability and imperfection. It encourages the development of compassion. As people become more sensitive to the struggles of others and more motivated to alleviate suffering in the world,